Well, today is the first day of a hearing into a human rights complaint against the English school district. The Churchill family say the school system discriminated against their 11-year-old son, Carter, who is deaf and has cerebral palsy. They say that he wasn't given enough access to resources like American Sign Language in class. Joining me now is the lawyer representing the Churchill family, Rees. So this has been years in the making, this hearing. Can you talk about the size and scope of this?
Yeah, this is by far the largest in scope and most involved human rights hearing that's ever taken place in this province. This complaint is 5 years old. I've been the lawyer for the Churchills for the last 4 years. Shortly after the complaint was filed, they hired me. And we're here for 2 weeks. We're putting under cross-examination not just a number of folks who've been involved in Carter's education, but sort of the top brass of the English school district, who are being called to account and explain why for years, 2016, 2017, 2018, it was known by the school district that it was failing deaf children, and why the school district failed to take, in our view, what the appropriate steps were.
Mm-hmm. And when you say like the top brass, who are we talking about here?
We're talking about the CEO of the school district. We're talking about the Director of Programs and Services. We're talking about various government officials and folks within the Department of Education, deputy ministers. So these are all individuals who, had some hand in ignoring the needs of deaf children in this province.
How many witnesses will be testifying?
I believe it's 22 witnesses.
Oh, wow, okay. And what does the Churchill family want to accomplish with this complaint?
The Churchill family has a couple of goals here that I'm assisting them in arguing for. The first is to ensure that their son Carter, on a go-forward basis, is provided with those services he needs, so instruction in ASL interpretation, those sorts of things. But it's also to ensure that the discrimination is recognized, such that other students who experience this kind of discrimination in the future, know that they have a remedy available to them, know what kinds of services they should expect. And in my view, the Churchills have gone a long way over the last few years, in establishing the kinds of educational programs that deaf children in this province should come to expect. And this human rights hearing is merely the last step in that process to make sure those rights are guaranteed, not just for Carter, but for all deaf kids.
Yeah, can you talk about that a bit more? How precedent-setting is this hearing?
I anticipate it's quite precedent-setting. There are several cases across the country, and indeed at the Supreme Court of Canada, that deal with sign language in the education context. So across the country, this actually isn't anything new. There's a lot of precedent there. But for this province, there have been very few, only a couple, of cases that have involved access to ASL and folks who require ASL interpretation. So it should be precedent-setting only in terms of that, because the existence of the Newfoundland School for the Deaf for so many years, there hasn't really been, I suppose, a need to explore in the past what accommodations are needed for deaf students. So this really is sort of the first test case in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And so if the Human Rights Commission does come back and say, yes, the English school district discriminated against Carter Churchill, what would happen then?
A few things would happen. I mean, just the finding that the programming that Carter received was discriminatory means a lot, because it sends a very clear signal that the programming needs to be changed and made better. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens, and we really look forward to this, is the school district is not just encouraged but ordered to ensure that there are teaching professionals with adequate experience and qualifications to teach ASL available in all schools for all children who need them. So hopefully the result of this hearing means that ASL education in Newfoundland and Labrador gets better, that people who have an interest in developing skills in ASL can get it and know that there will be a market here for it. So the real goal here is to make our education system better, and that's what the Churchills are looking to accomplish.
Well, Rees will be following along to see what happens with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.